Director Paul Thomas Anderson's affinity for broad canvases and ensemble casts make him unique among today's filmmakers. We'll find out why he works the way he does on Independent Focus.
This is kind of different from the stuff I normally see at the multi.
You're stuck with one interpretation.
Hollywood loves these guns, and it's all like
Because if the film doesn't hit, then you're really screwed. Certain movies kind of unnerve me a little more than others. They just didn't have anything to say at that time. I sold just about everything I owned. It's like I write the script, I rehearse the acting.
The big difference the more money gives you is just more
Talk is
creative.
very cheap to shoot. Sit up here and pontificate about filmmaking, not to have studios telling me what to do.
Thank you.
No, you didn't go to film school.
Right.
Why?
I think a weird combination of things. I think that there was, it was my plan in high school that I wouldn't go to film school, but then, a couple years out of high school, when I wasn't instantly directing a movie, I started to kind of panic and thought about going to film school, and even did go to enrolled in NYU. At first what happened was I couldn't get in anywhere. So when I couldn't get in, because my grades in high school weren't very good, so I couldn't get into college. And so what it did was create this attitude in me like, I don't need film school. Anyway, because you got to find some way to justify why you didn't, and make it feel good to yourself. You can't get into college, so you just start saying, well, that's bullshit, anyway. But then I started getting really nervous. I needed something, and I needed help, and I enrolled in NYU, and I went there for literally 2 days. What happened was I walked into this class, and this teacher said, if anyone is here to write Terminator 2, you just walk out. Just get out of the door. And I thought, well, that's just not a good way to start. What if I do want to write Terminator 2? What if someone sitting next to me wants to write? He was sort of instantly saying, we write serious films here, Terminator 2 is a pretty awesome movie. So he said, yeah. So there was an assignment to write. It was you write a page that has no dialogue in it, right? But you got to make sure that you explain something about a character. You show a character trait through action, with no dialogue, right? And I had read this great script by David Mamet, which was Hoffa, which was not made at the time. And there was a great scene that Mamet had written, where Danny DeVito is driving along, his character's driving along, and it shows what he's going through by the method he uses to keep himself awake while driving, which is he lights a cigarette and he holds it between his hands and he lets it burn down to his fingers to keep him burning his fingers and keeping him awake. That's just so simple and perfect and lovely, and it's, Mr. Pulitzer Prize himself, David Mamet. So I took that page and I handed it in, and it got a C+. And I said, all right, now I know I'm right. And there's a wonderful thing that if you drop out quick enough, you can get your tuition back. So I had this money that my father had put aside, some college money for me, and I sort of, very suspiciously took that money that had been, and I just lived off that and made a short film.
Lived in New York?
Not for long. I got out of there and came back home, back to LA.
You just not like New York at all?
No, it's just very hard to live in New York with no money. It was much easier for me to live here with a little bit, that I could make a short film with.
And tell me about the short film.
It's called Cigarettes and Coffee, and it's okay, it's okay. It's got great actors in it. Philip Baker Hall is in it,
The ubiquitous Philip Baker Hall.
Yes, you bet. So it was great to meet Philip.
How'd you meet him? How'd that happen?
I was working as a PA on, it's like a college campus reenactment story thing. I don't remember exactly what it was, but he was playing a professor who had gotten involved with some scandal on campus and docudrama thing. I don't know what it was. It seemed in everything that he'd done. And I went up and I just said, so I'm a really huge fan of yours, and I said something totally preposterous for a 22-year-old jackass PA to say, which is, I'm going to make you a star someday. I'm going to make you a star. And he was just like, A, I've heard that before. B, get me coffee. C,
who are you?
Who are you? But he let me give him the script, and I gave him the script, and I thank God, because he's just my favorite actor and one of my best friends.
Now, what's it like when you're working that hard? Basically, when you're making a short film, you're really just trying to make sure you don't run out of money and/or film before you get the thing done. Mm-hmm. What's it like to do that with actors who you have that much respect for?
Oh, it's great because they're making up for all your mistakes. You know what I mean? It's the first time out of the gate, so you're screwing up the lighting and you're screwing up the shots, and you are not well prepared. But at the very least, the acting is great. You know, it really, and that's probably, you know, when I look at the short film, I go, oh Jesus, okay, I'm clearly learning and I'm screwing up all over the place, but it can survive and just sort of sing a little bit because the acting is so amazing. Do you know what I mean? Even though I was working against it because I was shooting it so poorly. I really learned about acting from Philip Baker Hall. He was truly the real first actor that I got to work with. So,
What do you learn about that in terms of directing an actor? I mean, what do you learn from him? That the script basically gives him his preparation?
exactly. You know what? You learn, like, it's so hard to go through in detail, but just, you know, the lesson that I learned was, like, write it really well. You know what I mean? Write it really well. That's directing, is writing it really well, so that directing is just sort of being a fan and kind of watching them and loving them and monitoring every once in a while and reminding them to keep it simple, or, you know, just making sure that you put the camera in the right place to see what they're doing. You know, it's just answering a question that they might have. That's sort of a directing job. If they have a question, answer it. Otherwise, just shut up.
Is it okay to not have the answer too? I mean,
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, that's something that took a little while to learn, because, you know, when an actor asks you a question, you know, you sort of jump to answer even if you don't have it. You know what I mean? When I was young, you know, like, oh yeah, that's you know, and you just wing your way through it and you just make something up. But what I realized it's great to say I don't know. It's great to say, you know, I'm confused. You know,
because you can let them work it out too, right?
You can let them work it out, or you know, and sometimes it's sort of a flaw of some actors to really know exactly what they're doing. Do you know what I mean? You want them to come in with a plan, but if they're too boxed in to it, they're gonna end up being tight. I don't know, something like that. Well, Philip Baker Hall, for instance, wanted to know, does Jimmy know? You know how Jimmy says, I don't know what I've done. And Philip wanted to know, you know, am I lying or do I not know, you know? And I just needed to kind of dodge the answer. It's one of those where you just sort of dodge it. You dodge it and just let him kind of go. And you need to get some takes where you haven't addressed it. You need some, you know, that's a great thing. It's a movie, so you can do a bunch. If you have not answered the question, you can get takes where I have not informed him in any way, and he's out to sea for a little while on his own. And I can be upfront with that, just like, you know, we need to do some takes. Because then we can progress to the fact where I can tell him, okay, here's what I think. And if you want to play that, you can. And then we can get the takes where Philip can say, this is what I think, and I'll play this. Does that make sense?
Sure. I mean, obviously you write for actors, you write for him, you write for John Riley. Did you write the part for Tom Cruise?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. I went to, he was a fan of Boogie Nights, and that was great, you know, because he called me up and he said, I was going to London. I happened to be going to London to promote Boogie Nights, and I went and met him, and I got to go to the set, the Eyes Wide Shut set. And
what was that like?
It was amazing. I met Stanley Kubrick, which is like meeting, you know,
Stanley Kubrick.
You know, the king, yeah. So that was incredible. And I got to meet Tom, and he said, you know, just let's maybe, you know, I've always loved his stuff. Just thought he was fantastic.
What do you love about him? I mean, because you don't think Tom Cruise is an independent film, obviously.
He's just fun to watch. He's just always been great fun to watch, and I never felt, I felt the movie star thing in the best possible way. You know what I mean? I wanted to sort of see if he was as wonderful as I thought. I could not figure in the fact that he's the biggest movie star in the world, you know what I mean? And he's coming to show up and be part of an ensemble, and I think you figure out the best way to approach that and do that.
Which is what?
Which is, honestly, how we introduce him in the movie. Just a technical thing, like we introduce him in the movie, he's on a little TV screen, you know, on a shitty TV screen with shitty lighting and a bad infomercial set doing an infomercial. And it sort of instantly takes the rug out from under the world's biggest movie star, who should have a big movie star entrance.
Well, exactly. You're using the awareness of him being Tom Cruise.
Exactly.
And working against it.
And working against it. However, delivering the movie star entrance with the most incredibly over-the-top movie star entrance, hopefully of all time, with 2001 playing and, you know, flexing his muscles and. But you know, I don't know why I've gotten hooked on this thing of how characters are introduced in movies. I don't know why. I don't know exactly where it comes from, but just it was always interesting to me to see like how someone enters into a movie. How they, you know what I mean? Like that's the first time you see them.
Give me an example, one that was just really struck you.
Tom Cruise's entrance in when you first see him in The Color of Money, you know, and he's just sort of as you know, sort of ridiculous and he's playing the video games, you know, and he's and that's just sort of wonderful. You hear him at first in that movie, and then you just sort of like, what the? Paul Newman keeps looking over his shoulder. It's sort of wonderful. And
What was the first entrance you were aware of writing?
the first entrance I was aware of writing.
Yeah.
You mean writing for?
Writing for a movie. I mean, the thing you said.
You know
I'm
what?
going to write an entrance.
Yeah, it was. I was writing I was writing an entrance for Philip Baker Hall, and it's the first shot of Sidney, which is as his it's sort of a mystery entrance. In other words, it'd be the back of his the back of his coat, his back, basically, and we'd follow his back, and we'd get to hear that beautiful voice off camera with looking at John Riley, and that the first moment we'd see him would be blowing out the match.
Now tell me about your first meeting with John Riley.
Oh, it was great. I was great. I'm so in love with John Riley. I've always been in love with John Riley. Ever since I saw Casualties of War, which is his first movie, I realized that it was the first thing that he'd done. And then he kind of had this quick series of movies come out with Sean Penn, you know, and I was a really big Sean Penn fan. So there's John Riley. And then, so I wrote the part in Sydney for John, and he just called me on the phone and said, "I'm John Riley, I hear you're looking for me." You know? I said, I had this song that I was singing after I hung up the phone. I won't sing it out loud, but the lyrics just repeated, "John Riley's going to be in my movie. John Riley's going to be in my movie." I'm not going to sing. There's no way. So we met at this bar. That is actually a lot like the Smiling Peanut in this movie, the bar that Henry Gibson is at. It's this place that my dad and I went to a lot, and he just met me there, and we just talked and just hit it off. I mean, it was like, I just love him.
Tell me, first of all, the title, Hard Eight.
Oh, Jesus, you're opening a can of worms, man. That is truly, actually, a very, very, very long and painful story. But the bottom line is that the name of the movie that I made is called Sydney, and it was retitled by the distributor and the company that paid for it as Hard Eight, which sounds like heartache. But then if you make it Hard Eight, it just sort of sounds like a porno movie, you know. So there's that, and the reason that it just happened, what had happened was that they had made a cut of the cut of the movie, and they'd called it Hard Eight. They'd sort of taken away from me. I eventually got a cut back, had my cut, which is the thing that was released ultimately. But I said, so mine's called Sydney, and they said, well, ours is called Hard Eight. Well, eventually we'll go with yours, but we're going to call yours Hard Eight. And I said, no, you're not. And they said, we're going with ours, and it's called Hard Eight. So it was the one battle in this entire massive battle that I had to fight to regain control of my movie that I lost. It was at the finish line. And I don't know whether it was out of spite or whether they really wanted an extra shot on Showtime where Hard Eight kind of fits as a title or what. You know what I mean? On Showtime, it's always hard everything, you know. Hard Justice, Hard Bounty, Hard Targets 2. So I prefer to call it Sydney, but I've come to enjoy Hard Eight as a title a little bit.
A little bit.
Just that much.
Now tell me about about Dirk Diggler. Who did you want to play that? Before you got to Mark Wahlberg, do you have anybody in mind at all?
Yeah, I'd start out with Leonardo DiCaprio, and I thought he chose to do the Titanic instead, which good choice. But thank God I met Mark, because I think Mark is fantastic. I mean, Mark's certainly my first choice now.
I just wonder if as you're writing it, I mean, you weren't thinking of DiCaprio as you were writing the script, were you?
Not really. I mean, he popped into my head a few times. That was like one case where I wasn't really writing for one specific actor. And I had enough kind of wonderful real-life characters to base it on without having to depend on an actor that I was writing for.
Well, speaking of actors you write for, too, you got William H. Macy.
Yeah. Just love that guy.
Oh, how can you not?
The first time I saw him was in House of Games, in the Mammoth movie, when he's in the Western Union office, and he's just cracked me up. And then I'd see him keep cropping up in Mammoth's movies, and then he started to filter off into other people's movies, and I was so excited. And then there was a weird part of me that was so excited, but so sort of jealous when Fargo came out. I was like, I wanted to do that. I wanted to make him the star of the movie. But it was great because it created a situation where you can go, Bill Macy's in my movie, and then you can get money for it. And that's kind of a great thing, and very, very rare.
So other people kind of doing your work for you, building them up, right?
Yeah, exactly. You know, but you get the jealous director thing where you're just like, oh, I wanted to be the one who gave him a cool, big starring part, you know.
You must have written a part for him in Magnolia.
Yes, I did. I thought, you know, that Macy does something really well, and I kind of wanted to cater to that, but hopefully put something new in there for him. He does confusion really, really well. But I wanted to also put a kind of emotional pitch in there, maybe that sometimes Macy gets a little bit shy to go to, and I really wanted to kind of, to really press him to do that scene in the bar there, which I really think he pulled off well, which I think is lovely. And you know, it was fun to kind of get Macy to a real emotional place, a crying place. Quite, you know, that's really what I'm saying.
Sure.
And Macy's not a big fan of doing that kind of stuff. He likes to, he loves to have it all straight ahead, and I love to throw him curveballs. You know, it's great to throw him curveballs.
But he responds to them, obviously.
Oh, totally, totally. He tries to dodge them at first, and then he starts
catching them, throwing them back.
Yeah, totally. Totally, and then he just runs with it. Then he just starts loving it.
And you hear about the Altman influence. You've got him in the scenes with an Altman actor, with Henry Gibson.
Henry Gibson, who's from Nashville and Long Goodbye. Yeah, Henry Gibson. I wrote that for Henry Gibson too. I didn't know him, but I thought, you know, boy, it would be great to get Henry Gibson.
Now, these movies, I guess I remind a little bit of Raymond Carver and Altman with Shortcuts. A little bit of The Player too. They're all movies. These three movies of yours about characters, if not desperate characters, then certainly characters in desperate situations.
Yeah. I wanted to try and create really big and desperate situations out of really just like everyday and simple things, like no guns, you know what I mean, and nothing, like making a big moment out of whether or not I'm going to take a phone call from my dad, you know what I mean, whether or not I'm going to, you know, going to the bathroom. You know what? I saw a movie called, I don't know if anybody saw it, it was just When the Cat's Away.
Oh, yeah.
It's such a fantastic movie, and it was so inspiring to me. It was so small, and it's just about this girl who lost her cat. I mean, it's just a movie that just came out a couple years ago.
Little French movie, yeah.
A little French movie, and it's just, she lost her cat, she has to find her cat. You know? And after making Boogie Nights, I was just like, yeah, that's great. And I just started thinking, I started writing down all of these simple things. I kind of got carried away. It sort of became something else here. But I did start out with, like, you know, I'll keep the list to myself, but it's sort of, you know, like getting a cold sore. You know what I mean? Like, you can't find your car keys. Like, these things can be stories. These things can be just simple situations, because they will always lead you to, in some way, some bigger, emotional, more confused, elaborate. Because When the Cat's Away becomes ultimately about this girl sort of finding her way into this community, you know, and getting out of her house. Get out of your house. Even though you're getting out to find your cat, so it's kind of full of shit at first, thank God you have, because you got to meet people in your neighborhood and shake their hands and help them search for your cat.
I mean, that movie plays like a fairy tale, and the way this does too. I mean,
Yeah.
You literally start with fairy tales.
Yeah.
And then you start with the tale that builds into like the bigger fairy tale stuff. At what point did the Book of Exodus come into your hand?
Okay, well, honestly,
Yeah.
You want the honest answer?
Yeah, we're here.
Okay, I didn't realize that the Reign of Frogs was in the Bible until I finished writing the script, and I sent it to Henry Gibson. And I went out to dinner with, we all went out to Henry Gibson's house in Malibu, and he's got this great spread, and it was so wonderful because we all smoked cigarettes, so we just all smoked like chimneys, and he handed me this Bible, and it was earmarked with green and white polka dot, you know, bookmark, and I was like, oh, Henry, this is great. And instantly as he handed it to me, I knew, I think that there's a Reign of Frogs in the Bible, and I am so stupid that I don't know it, but I'm going to have to pretend like I know that. And I did, in fact, pretend like, oh, this is great. great. And I looked and I just said, great, Henry, this is good. Because I wanted to be smarter than I was, really. And so then I just started to do the research on that and realized, yeah, okay, it's in the Bible. But I'd first come to it through Charles Fort, who's a great writer, really cool writer. And he wrote Rains of Frogs and Fishes.
There's a different kind of thing that he writes about. Though.
Yeah, it's a very different thing. And then what happened was we were on a game show set. We were doing the game show set, and we were shooting the shot of the bleachers. And I just thought, you know, remember whenever you see like a ballpark, like a game, you know, somebody's got a John 3:16.
Yeah.
And you know, it sort of looked like this audience. It looked like, you know, it was an audience shot. It was like a ballpark, and I just thought, what's that verse in the Bible? And we just sort of looked. It's Exodus 8:2. There it is. So we had somebody hold up an Exodus 8:2 sign, and then it became wonderfully fun thing to sort of plant them throughout, you know, the movie. I mean, if anybody has the desire to sit through this mammoth thing again, you can find 8s and 2s everywhere. It became a really fun kind of thing that we'd all screw with each other, just like, you know, you hide them on the set and see who could see where they were.
I would say people, you have questions, please come to the microphones. You got one right here.
Okay.
And the song Wise Up by Amy Mann.
Yeah.
How you came to the conclusion of using that as the major thread, because I know that's from Jerry Maguire.
Yeah, it's from Jerry Maguire, but it was never in the movie, which was great for me. Another director's mistake, Cameron's mistake, was my, you know, big benefit, I think.
It was amazing.
Yeah, I had heard that song a while ago because I'm friends with Amy Mann, and which was great. Who's just an amazing, amazing, amazing artist, and one of the greatest songwriters I've ever heard in my whole life, I think. And she wrote this song called Wise Up, and I had heard it, and then I didn't have any sort of real attachment to it at that point. I hadn't written Magnolia, but she gave it to Cameron Crowe to put in Jerry Maguire. He didn't end up using it. And I was really happy because then I was writing Magnolia. It truly was it was not something that I planned on doing, a sort of musical moment. It was one of those things where I've been listening to Amy's music over and over and over again. You know, you just have music playing and Wise Up was playing. And it's sort of one of those things you just start typing it, like, okay, she's gonna start to sing.
The
and
words
then
are
you just
really
keep going.
powerful.
Oh, what's that?
The words are very powerful.
Yeah, and then it's, you know, it's just serendipity or something coming together in this great moment. And I remember that I told Amy about it, and she's just like really embarrassed. She's like, this is never gonna work. This is so stupid. And I was really happy. The first person that we shot of doing that was Julianne Moore, who's just, you know, if you ever want to do something weird, just start off with Julianne Moore, because she can really pull it off, you know? And then it was great, because I think the crew was a little bit like, well, what's this musical number we're going to do? And then Julianne just rocked the house, and then everybody saw Julianne do it, and they were like, oh, okay. Okay, so that's how we're going to do it. Okay, so they were all very, you know, a healthy actor competition, you know, of how they were going to sing and pull it off.
Is that thing of getting them to respond to the other people in the movie?
Exactly. Oh yeah. Believe me, John Riley's very upfront about sort of visiting the set when like Tom Cruise was doing his scenes and Phil Hoffman just like, oh okay, that's what they're going to do. Okay, that's cool. I don't shoot for another couple months, but it's great to hang out. You know, he was just checking them out. You know, just like Phil's crying. Okay, good. Shit, you know. All right. They just see him go work on his new plan. Like, oh, maybe my character could cry more. You know? Do you think? No, I'm kidding. He doesn't.
How tough is it to get him to dance in Boogie Nights?
Oh, not hard at all. You just say action. Go, John. Okay, John's dancing. John, cut. John, you're still dancing. John, you don't have to dance any. John is like ham and cheese. I'm just like. John needs to, the only direction I've ever gone is just like, it's okay, you don't have to do that. You don't have to do that. I could do it with my pants off, really? You don't want to? No, John, you don't have to do it.
Hi, you talked
Hello.
about how important character entrances are. What about their ending and their ending beats? And I know in Boogie Nights
Yeah.
you have the most amazing ending beat to the film,
Yeah.
but just, you know, the specific characters, how do you determine their ending beats, and especially in post-production when you can change it and determine a different last shot for the film? And this film, how did you come up with the ending beats for the characters in this film?
This is actually a movie that started with its ending. The final shot of Melora Walters is the very first thing that I thought of before I started writing. I just thought of Melora's face, smiling into the camera. I know her real well. She's a great actress and a really good friend of mine. And I just saw that image of her smiling and looking into the lens, and and then instantly sort of started thinking of Philip Baker Hall as her father, and a sort of a strange relationship that they had. So that's that image of Melora. As far as every other character, you know, you know what? I never really know. I never really know how a movie's going to end when I start writing it. You know.
I'm real interested in your writing process, and I wonder if you could talk a little bit, like kind of tell what a writing day is like for you, or how you go about it.
Sure. I write very early in the morning. I wake up really early, about like 5:30 or 6 o'clock, and I can really only write for like 3 or 4 hours. It's just I have a whole bunch of rituals that I kind of do for myself, and I can only write for about 3 or 4 hours, I think. And I think it's because I smoke so much, and I don't. I just get tired from smoking so much. I smoke constantly, but I'm going to try and quit at some point. So.
Is that part of the ritual really important to you, the smoking part?
Yeah, I'm going to smoke.
Please go.
Okay. It really is. It totally is. It totally is.
Well, as you light up, we'll like.
Oh, do you outline, or do you just start?
No,
totally
I
from
don't.
randomly?
What I do, I write lists, like of things that I like, or things that I want to do, or the actors that it really is. It's like that. And this started out. I wrote the budget, what I thought the budget was going to be. Because I thought $5 million, small. In the Valley, and I wrote Rain of Frogs, Melora's Smile, Jimmy Gator. I had that name in my head for Philip Baker Hall. Just lists the Tom Cruise character's name, and like a little piece of dialogue. Just lists, and then the list just starts turning into more. The lists start turning into paragraphs, and then as soon as it sort of like could become like a book that I write, it starts making itself a screenplay. I just sort of start writing it as a movie.
Let's thank Paul Thomas Anderson.
Oh. Thanks.